James Elder, az UNICEF globális szóvivője 1 héttel ezelőtt megérkezett Ukrajnába, és azóta is onnan tudósít a szervezet munkájáról. Hello James, where exactly are you at the moment and what's the situation like in the Ukraine at this moment?
Hi there. I'm in Lviv in western Ukraine. It's about 80 kilometers from the border with Poland. The situation is harrowing. We continue to have children under fire. We continue to see children killed in this conflict, injured. We have reports of hospitals, schools, all in the line of fire. And of course, we have 500,000 children now, 500,000, who have had to flee their country and are now in neighboring countries. 500,000 in 7 days. It's unprecedented in swiftness and scale. And what I see here is it's unprecedented in sorrow and stress on families.
What is it like for the children every day who are staying in the cities and villages of the Ukraine?
Well, where I am, it's like an exit point. It's still this place, whilst we have a lot of air raid sirens, it has not seen conflict. So it's a hub. Families have come, taken the train or by road from Kiev or Kharkiv, the second city. Children arrive here exhausted. They're scared. They're often seeing their father farewell them whilst he stays, and sitting down talking to his 9-year-old daughter, 6-year-old son, saying, Dad's leaving, you're going. Husbands and wives farewelling each other. So, they're exhausted, they're scared, they've been in bunkers, they've seen conflict, they're separated, they're leaving grandmothers behind. And that's those children here who are leaving. There are many, many others who, as we speak, will be in a bunker somewhere. And we fear greatly for them.
UNICEF has a lot of staff on the ground trying to help the population. What exactly are the colleagues doing these days?
Yeah, we do. UNICEF's, the heart of our operation was in the east, where conflict has, of course, been for several years. And that was everything from major support, water and sanitation. If a water system gets hit by a bomb, then people have no access to clean water. That can be a disaster. And of course, Ukrainians will go to a river. The rivers are frozen. So everything from emergency water to emergency health care, mobile protection teams, these brave men and women who would go in between the conflict lines to try and reach children who had been at risk of abuse or violence. Now, of course, that support needs to go nationwide, as this conflict has gone nationwide. So now we need that same support. We're bringing in, as I speak, on the way into Ukraine, it'll be here later today, tomorrow morning, a convoy of supplies, medical supplies, surgical supplies, emergency water supplies, dignity kits for women. The needs are great. The needs are potentially endless, so long as this conflict continues. And a lot of psychological support, I would add. It's something UNICEF sees as being very important. We know it. We know the children, as you and I have spoken about, the trauma that they have suffered, the stress of being in those situations, of seeing their parents endure. That trauma only ends when they are safe. But UNICEF knows as well they need care, attention, emergency learning centres, anything for a bit of normalcy to try and reduce that amount of stress and trauma on boys and girls.
Can you describe what that psychological support looks like at the moment in the field?
Yeah, in border areas, say in Romania, we have something called a blue dot, and they're literally dotted along the journey of people, a tent, a safe space where a child can go. We can make sure they're with family members. They can talk to someone. UNICEF does have experts in this field, counsellors and so on, and we can see the sort of care that they require. There is that. There's teaching, any education support offers psychological support. Those mobile teams are so important and so brave. That's that kind of psychological support that UNICEF's offering at the moment.
What is the situation like for the children living in institutions and alternative care?
Terrifying. Tens of thousands of children are in institutions or alternative care. Many of those children are disabled. We have reports of those institutions being in the line of fire. There are evacuations that will occur of those children. That's very difficult. It's very difficult for anyone to evacuate from those cities. Then UNICEF will be there both to guide the authorities in those countries. Again, the authorities working overtime in Poland, Romania, Hungary, Moldova, guiding them around the things we know so well when it comes to children who've been separated from families or don't have families, in terms of, adoption is not to be proceeded with during an emergency situation, guiding local authorities on how to find very safe care for children until this situation's over and we can look for family members again. So it's an area UNICEF knows very well. It's a very complicated area, but it's an area we focus on because these are some of the children in greatest need. They are without family. As I say, many are living with disabilities, and now they're living in conflict.
We've also heard some harrowing stories about children's hospitals. Can you describe what's happening in those institutions, whether you have any personal experience, and how UNICEF is able to support them?
Yeah, it's Kiev. I mean, you think about, for your viewers who are mums and dads, and nothing worse when we have a child in a hospital and you just hope that the doctor is good, and then you maybe hope for the best. I've met amazing pediatricians here, and they are the best, but they're working in conflict situations. They're working in basements with poor lighting and not the same sanitation or cleanliness they would want. It's horrendous. UNICEF, every emergency oxygen cylinders, we've got those to the hospital in Kiev. Here in Lviv, I went to a children's hospital yesterday, and amazing pediatrician. In fact, the children see them as superheroes, so they had dressed them up in superhero outfits and their portraits are on the wall. But I spoke to them about, are you now preparing for, beyond being a pediatrician and a surgeon, for mass casualties of children? And they explained that they were, and they explained that the system that they will use, which is if children come in great numbers, they have to filter them based on need. A green dot means fine, put them over there, hopefully out of harm's way. A yellow dot means they need attention. A red dot is critical. And a black dot on a child means they won't be able to be saved. This is what those pediatricians are facing here in Ukraine.
What would UNICEF need to be able to reach children, all children if possible?
It's a very good question. Humanitarian access, safe humanitarian corridors. And we've been very glad to hear in the last 12, 24 hours that both sides have discussed that and agreed on that. We need to see that's the case. Those corridors need to be for civilians to get out safely with dignity, and for UNICEF to get into those people who are still trapped with the kind of support you and I have talked about.
In terms of the people on the move, we've heard stories about unaccompanied children arriving in neighboring countries without parents. Do you see these stories on the ground?
Yeah, I see most stories I see, most people I meet, and I've spoken to more than 100 people, most are about a family being ripped apart in terms of, as I say, a dad farewelling his little baby girl, and a mother, husband and wife embracing, and they pray not for the last time. Many people are very happy to speak as well, or willing to speak to tell their story, but it's very few conversations get far without tears. Such is the level of stress. When I'm at the train station, the bus station, I turn in any corner and there's another person consoling a child. There's another person on the phone trying to find out where a family member is. But at border areas, I've seen fathers pass their children, fathers who cannot leave, pass their children through a border to a border guard on the other side. And so that's happening as well. When you have 500,000 children in 7 days, it's all happening.
How old are these children that are just being passed through the border?
Oh, the child I saw was no more than 2, a toddler.
A toddler left on their own, just given to the border guard.
Given to a border guard, exactly.
Does UNICEF know what happens to these children next?
Yeah. Well, now, most importantly, at those this was Saturday morning at first light. So, this was 36 hours into the situation. Now, UNICEF will be ensuring we have child protection experts at these border areas. and have had those meetings and discussions with local authorities so that they are clear. We see great generosity from those people, in Romania, in Hungary, in Poland, to welcome people in. These people who no one wants to leave, but they need to. But it's also important that those people who are welcoming understand, best interest of the child, the laws around adoption and unaccompanied children, and that's an area of great expertise for UNICEF. So, meeting rooms don't look very, very interesting, but it's very important right now having those meetings with those generous volunteers and local staff in those countries I mentioned, so they understand what they need to do, what constitutes best interests of a child if they're unaccompanied.
Obviously, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the ground to reach as many children and vulnerable families as possible. How do you keep UNICEF staff safe while they're doing this?
Look, I think that we as UNICEF staff have great faith in the UN system and security, and they do their job and we do ours. You get the intelligence on where you can move to and where you maybe shouldn't. Obviously, international law speaks loudly about safety for humanitarian workers, but for me, for example, I have faith in that security apparatus. I have everywhere I've worked. I have to. It's so critical. I mean, we are frontline responders. We are there to reach those children in need wherever they are. Most UNICEF staff have families as well. No one wants to be a cowboy, but if security say it's fine to go in, then staff go in.
How do you see the next couple of days, next few weeks unfolding? What do you anticipate happening in Ukraine and in the neighboring countries?
The decision is in the hands of where this conflict's emanating from, but I'm not terribly optimistic. I share there is immense strength from Ukrainians, but the sense on the ground is obviously, as you see in the news, things are getting worse and people are making a decision to continue leaving. It's the only safe option they have. So the coming days look like the last few days of extraordinary numbers of people leaving. That will continue so long as their cities are bombarded and mums and dads are forced to as a mother, the number of mums and dads who said this to me, that they don't want to leave. They're physios and teachers and mechanics and doctors. They want to be with their patients and with their clients and with their friends and family, but they've got to the point where they think the only way I can keep my child safe is to go now. As one mum at the train station said, she said, I feel like I'm making these immense decisions every moment of the day, and I'm terrified if I get one wrong, I'll lose control. I won't have a chance. Decision-making power will be taken away from me. That's the reality of what people here are dealing with. But right now, given the intensity of the conflict, of the bombing, they are choosing to leave.
As people are leaving the country, UNICEF is having to bring more people in to scale up operations. What is that looking like?
Yeah, it's looking fast and effective, to be honest. This is not the country I work in. I have a global role based out of Switzerland. We've had people come from as far as South Africa. I don't think there's a shortage per se of people ready and willing to come and help, and that can be people who do logistics, the technical people to come and guide on a protection level, water and sanitation experts. So, health professionals, nutritionists. I think we're seeing a continual surge of those people coming, not just here, of course, but to those border countries where colleagues will be stretched so quickly and are already working around the clock. And so that other support from other aspects of UNICEF is so important, remembering, of course, while UNICEF continues to work on those crises from Yemen to Afghanistan to Ethiopia.
So James, yesterday when you were in this children's hospital, did you see anyone coming from other areas of the country?
Yeah, there are. And it's a very good point you make, that we talk of all the children fleeing, 500,000. I still can't quantify this. And the many hundreds of thousands seeking to leave. Then there are children in hospitals. In this hospital where I was, there are babies in intensive care. there are children with trips in them. It's very difficult and dangerous for these kids to leave. I met one mother, Valeria, had perfect English. She was from a city a few hundred kilometers, though it took them 10 hours. Valerie is a new mum. She's a first-time mum, 2-month-old daughter, Emma. And they'd had 2 nights of bombardment. And they didn't want to leave, of course. It's their city, they're new parents, they've got grandparents, all the things that you want when you're starting a family. But the bombardment was too much. They had to leave. And on the journey, Emma, the baby, started coughing blood. That's why I met her at a hospital. And her mum just said to me, you know, I want Emma safe. And Emma now is. Emma got the attention she needed. She's fine. But Valeria just said, I want Emma to know her parents. I want to make sure Emma has parents going forward. And it just struck me as it's the insanity of this, that this is what parents must ask for now. This is a hope that a parent, that their child will still have a mother and a father in the coming weeks.
As UNICEF is bringing in more international staff, is there also an effort from local volunteers to help in the humanitarian program delivery?
As I mentioned earlier, just turning around time and again to see a husband and a wife in that emotional embrace, or a mum and a little girl in tears, it's relentless. Then I've seen volunteers, and it's this moment that always gives you a boost of energy, whether it was when I was heading towards the border with Poland, and you would see, you know, young girls, 15, 16, who'd made cake and cookie and were tapping on car windows of people who'd been in their freezing cars for days just to give them something, or grandmothers on the street with these big pots of delicious smelling food and coffee, just, you know, trying to soften the situation for people. Or I see people at the train station say, look, you've been here for 6-7 hours. Can I give you a bed for a few hours? I've seen people in pharmacies, in chemists say, you know, you seem to be buying a lot. Do you have enough money? Youth doing IT in reception centers, people giving blankets, giving food, giving medicine. It's been an immense outpouring of generosity from everyday Ukrainians, just as I hear is happening on those borders with Hungary, with Romania, with Poland.
We have a lot of respect for this work that you're doing with the colleagues there in the Ukraine. Thank you very much for speaking to us today, James.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thanks for your support.